Power to protect individual rights while promoting the common good. Why did the Federalists and Anti-Federalists disagree on whether the Constitution sufficiently protected individual rights and promoted the common good? What responsibility, if any, do citizens have for seeing that the individual rights are protected and the common good promoted? When you're ready, go.
As former President Woodrow Wilson...
Stop. Start over. Stop your clock. Ray, it's state. You have to win the race, and you have to be Kai Benedict. Passion. When you're ready, you may begin.
As former President Woodrow Wilson once stated, there is no higher religion than human service. To work for the common good is the greatest creed. The common good is the overall benefit of society, without violating the rights of the minority. The idea of promoting the common good dates back to the classical republican values of the Greek and Romans, who believed in bettering society even at the expense of individual rights. The Constitution allows individuals to sacrifice, at one's own choosing, personal liberty, yet the Bill of Rights restricts government from taking away individual liberties by explicitly stating what Congress cannot do. For example, the text of the First Amendment states, "Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment of religion or promoting the free exercise thereof." In the Supreme Court case, the Church of Lukumi Babalilai v. the City of Hialeah, the Supreme Court ruled with the Church, allowing them to continue in the sacrifice of animals as a religious practice.
These individual liberties do not come freely, however. They come with individual responsibilities that we as citizens have towards our government. The most important responsibilities we have as a citizen of the United States are to vote, stay informed on current issues, and perform civic duties such as paying taxes, going to school, the draft, and jury duty. Clay v. United States portrays a situation in which a well-known boxer, Muhammad Ali, supported his religious beliefs over many Americans' view of performing their civic duty of military service during the draft.
John Adams said, "Government is instituted for the common good, for the protection, safety, prosperity, and happiness of the people." The Federalists and Anti-Federalists disagree on the meaning of the promotion of the common good. The majority of Anti-Federalists, with the exception of a few wealthy supporters, were generally farmers from rural areas with a much different interpretation of what the common good was than their opposition.
The Federalists were generally well-educated and members of the property-owning class who mostly lived in urban areas along the seaboard and interpreted the common good in a much different way. The Federalists believed that individual rights were already protected in Article 1, Section 9, which protected rights like habeas corpus, ex post facto, and bill of attainder. However, in 1863, Abraham Lincoln suspended the writ of habeas corpus in order to stop rioters in Maryland and other imminent threats to the Union and promote the common good. Violation of rights in order to promote the common good is not a new concept, and is commonly seen throughout the United States history. A more recent example is the USA Patriot Act. The act was signed into law by President George W. Bush in 2001. In 2011, President Barack Obama signed the Patriot Sunsets Extension Act, which is a 4-year extension of 3 key provisions of the USA Patriot Act: roving wiretaps, searches of business records, and surveillance of suspected terrorist-related activities not related to terrorist groups. In both 2001 and 2011, these acts were signed into law in order to promote the common good, even though they call for a sacrifice of individual rights.
In Reed v. Reed, the Supreme Court decided that all laws being discriminatory against gender are unconstitutional because it violated the 14th Amendment for those citizens. This became one of the first acts of the women's rights movement and served its purpose of educating the future generations against sexism and discrimination.
With government's limited power of restricting individual rights for the sake of the common good, people must keep these words of Ronald Reagan in mind. It is time to restore the American precept that each individual is responsible for his actions.
One of the big things the Anti-Federalists argued as they're getting into this debate was a Bill of Rights. Is there anything today, in 2013, that you would add to the Bill of Rights that you see that the government could possibly or is taking too much action against citizens or states?
I would definitely say 2 big issues in today's world that should be added to the Bill of Rights would be legalization of marijuana and gay marriage in order to essentially appease the issue between states pushing for these things to happen anyway, such as Colorado and Washington legalizing marijuana, and other states, such as I believe Hawaii was the latest to legalize gay marriage, are moving towards
Finish it.
they're trying to, I completely forgot your question, I'm trying to tie it back, and that's,
Bill of Rights. Added the Bill of Rights.
okay, so, if we were to add provisions such as the legalization of marijuana and gay marriage into the Bill of Rights, we would stop essentially an extension of the Anti-Federalist debate between state power and states trying to, I'm losing where I'm going with this.
Some big bucks. And everything else.
Okay, so what my colleague Victor was trying to say is that
Don't pick on Victor, pick something different. Do you think, is there anything
I
that should
like
be
what
added?
Victor had to say.
No, I don't care. Victor had his answer. What's your answer? I want you to think something different, Ray.
Well, actually, I would ask a
Go ahead.
question here, and I have a question for you. Why would you add it to the Bill of Rights? Why couldn't it just be done through legislation? And does the government have the right to do that? Or is this a state's rights issue?
Okay, so, in response to that, I think the reason that it couldn't just be done through legislation, and the reason that just having states do it would be, one, for the legislative reason, our Congress and our Senate are obviously not very good at this process of legislation and passing things. As the last session, I believe, had 7 bills passed, making it the least amount passed ever. And the process there is so slow, and these issues are so pressing, and the population is so behind a lot of these issues, and there's a lot of weight on both sides, that the government and legislation would not be an accurate way to appease this and to settle this and to be able to move forward. Because of how slow it moves and because of how hot these issues are.
And what is the process for an amendment to the Constitution?
The amendment to the Constitution, it has to, the process for that is also just as long and also just as controversial, because in order to amend it, it has to go to the 2 different ways for it to be amended, and like the state legislators would have to go through it and all these, and the processes are just too long for that to be even an idea. But
You're censured.
what?
You're butchered. Take it back. Answer the question.
What
Go.
was the question? The original
Why not just legislation? Her question.
Okay, not yours.
No.
Okay.
I'm cutting you off because
I'd like to.
I want to hear them answer.
I'd like to go back to what you.
That's fine, answer the question.
Your first question. Okay, so I would, instead of adding to the Bill of Rights that we currently have, I would look at the Second Amendment. And the Second Amendment states that you have the right to bear arms. But it also states that that's for the purposes of having a well-regulated militia. And today I think that the United States has a more than well-regulated militia with the large standing army that we currently have and the 11 aircraft carriers that are around the globe. I think that is sufficient enough. And so I believe that when it comes to a person's right to own a gun, that we need to change our perception of what it means to own a gun as opposed to own a assault rifle. And so I would take a look at the Second Amendment and reword it and try to refine it to fit the needs of people instead of the needs of a soldier.
There's been a lot of talk and also a lot written about the wage gap, about the fact that we have a shrinking middle class, a growing large class of people who live at poverty or below, and then there's the famous 1%. How is that addressed by the common good? I mean, you have 3 different common goods. How do you bring them together? Or can you? And who's responsible?
The latest attempt in recent years to essentially appease this conflict between the 3 separate classes would be the Affordable Care Act, and the idea of although this idea of sacrificing individual liberties, some people are going to have to come under this, and there's things that are being forced onto people in regards to the Affordable Care Act. It is an attempt to promote the common good by allowing all people within these classes to have health care and to have affordable health care. I believe that is the federal government's most recent attempt to promote the common good for all three classes, not just one over the other.
One historical example in bringing together the common good would be the Social Security Act, and that they tried to. I don't know what that.
It's a good one.
It's a good one.
It's a really good one.
Yes.
Go, understand, write yourself a note so you can look at the Social Security Act, because I think it's a good answer. Make sure you understand it so you can continue your thoughts on it.
And I'll throw this in because if you've been talking about this as an entitlement, is it an entitlement if during your working years you've been paying into it?
You understand that? Are you entitled to?
So like you've essentially bought the right to.
Right, versus the fact of because you reach a certain poverty level, are you entitled then to certain welfare types of programs versus Social Security where you, literally money's come out of your paycheck into the big bank.
Which has been rated by Congress on a regular basis.
Who is better at protecting individual rights and promoting the common good, the national government or the state governments? And why?
I would say state governments are more adept at promoting the common good because they have to deal with a much smaller population as regard, like the state of Arizona versus the entire United States. The difference in amount of people, number one, is huge. And just something like that is a benefit to the state. And states are also, they can pass legislation quicker. And just recently, I think the total's up to 15 states have legalized gay marriage, which is something that the national government is still fighting about and has not had a clear stance on
But they
whether
did
they're going to
away,
legalize it or not.
but they did away at the national level with the gay DOMA Act. So if they did away with the DOMA Act, then can states still regulate whether or not homosexual couples can marry? Remember in the Constitution, there's very specific language in terms of what the federal government can do, and if it's not spelled out,